Good afternoon, Drugs, Brain, and Behavior, Spring 2024. My name is Dr. Olson, or Eric. I will be, your professor for this semester. I've studied the effects of drugs on the brain for many years. I've been doing this for over 15 years now. I started by studying the effects of cocaine on the brain, which is like why I like to joke that I finished my PhD in under 5 years because, the effects of cocaine, which is, partially true. I did finish very rapidly. And then I moved on to study cannabinoids for my postdoctoral fellowship. I've also studied opioids, benzodiazepines, alcohol, really quite a few different drugs of abuse in addition to psychiatric drugs. I've primarily measured dopamine release events in the brain associated with these various drugs. And when I study, models of drug addiction, this typically involves animals that self-administer drug themselves. I typically would give them a jugular catheter so they can press a lever and take hits of heroin or cocaine, for example. So that's my background and where I come from a drugs perspective. However, my approach to teaching drugs and this class in general has evolved quite a bit over the course of the years. There was a point where it was, I think, probably very important to me that you would be memorizing all the trade names of different antidepressants and memorizing exactly which receptors different antidepressants bind to, and then regurgitate the trade name versus the generic name, for example. I don't think that that is very important information, actually, for the majority of students in this class. If you go on to medical school, I promise you, you will have to memorize the names of all the antidepressants there. Here we will cover antidepressants, and we will go over some of the general mechanisms through which we think that they might produce anxiety and antidepressant effects. We will also critically consider whether they work well at all for depression. And we will similarly get into some deeper critical thinking. One big picture thing that I've done over the last few years is I've pivoted away from being a teacher that only tells you what you should know and spends the majority of class time giving you facts to memorize. Now I would say about 1/3 of the class is that. At least that's my goal, to make it about 1/3. The other 2/3 of the class are devoted more to learning or encouraging your learning of important concepts in drugs, brain, and behavior. So, what do I mean by that? Let me give you some examples. And to do that, I am going to actually pull up the syllabus here, which we will now go over. So here you can see the syllabus. Of course, this is an asynchronous online class, meaning that we will never intentionally be required to be in the same room at the same time. I have designed this class to provide maximal choice, flexibility, and equity. So let me know if there are any issues that come up as we go, and I'll try to find proper accommodation for you. Um, I've made this completely an OER course, meaning that all information that I'm giving you is freely available, aside from a book chapter here or there, and I am allowed to share two of those, in the grand 15-week course. And that is exactly what I've done, and those have been made freely available to you as well. I do expect you to participate in discussion posts. If you are not doing that, I will deduct points from your overall grade. I do think that it will take approximately 15 hours of your week to do well in this class. Keep in mind that listening to my lectures and taking quizzes is only about 1/3 of that work. Each week, you will also be responsible for viewing additional information that I provide that I would like you to think critically about and really, consider. To foster that, you will also develop little thought paragraphs that I want you to post each week to a discussion board. And you will also be working on a critical thinking essay in the background that is related to an additional media discussion group that I will go over here in a minute. I do allow some drops here. Every student is given one drop of, a quiz to accommodate life. So in other words, you can basically take a week off from the lecture and quiz if you have to. Alternatively, you can participate in every week and drop your lowest grade. I will also give you one additional drop if we have a very high FCQ response rate for this class. You only have to complete 12 of your 15 critical thinking paragraphs. Now, the way that I would approach this is I would look at it as like you have choice. You can have 3 skips or drops. So what I recommend doing first is going in there and seeing if there are 3 topics that you just would not want to discuss no matter what. So I would go ahead and cross those off and then look at your calendar and see if there is a wedding or something like this coming up that you really want to focus on in one given week, and then cross off that one too. And then hopefully you can save another drop for that hectic week in life that hasn't quite manifested yet, but will happen. My late policy is you get one unpenalized makeup within 48 hours. You can take advantage of this once. After that point in time, I'm going to stop accepting late work. There is a caveat here in that I am very accommodating. I think of accommodations very broadly, even if you do not have a contract with the accommodation center. Please feel free to email me and let me know if you are having some issues, if there are unprecedented circumstances and some reason that we can work out, excused absences for you. To do well in this class, first of all, I think it's very important to stick to the schedule. I have created all of these online classes to be very cyclical in nature, so you can sort of get in the rhythm on a week-to-week basis. There are immense benefits to maintaining such a schedule to maximize your future outcomes. If you come across a complicated topic in the quizzes, like, for example, how do SSRIs produce antidepressant effects in the brain? This is not a very easy concept. It's not a one-liner response. So to really grasp these bigger picture concepts, I recommend trying to teach them out loud, either to a friend or even to a stuffed animal or the wall. But, trying to explain the material out loud. There are quite a few neuroscientific studies out there to demonstrate that that is much more effective at helping you consolidate the information than trying to passively read notes or even just listen to me in the recorded lectures. You do have to write a paper at the end of the term that's due at the end of the term. I would like you to consider using the Writing Center. You are paying for it. If you don't use it, you are basically throwing your money away. And not to mention you will receive very good feedback if you seek out the Writing Center. For the course format in this class, you will be responsible for reviewing my lecture content and then additional supplemental material that I provide you every week. I will give you a total of 15 prompts. This 7-week part, I just realized, is now in error. I will fix that and send out a revised syllabus here very shortly. But yes, you actually have to complete 12 out of 15 critical thinking paragraphs this term. Each of those only has to be 100 words, though. I did reduce the length that is required. So by the end of most weeks, you will have to have completed a quiz and submitted a critical thinking paragraph. Right. that will, what you can see right here. Yeah, now this is correct. Forget the seven part. But yes, 12 of the critical thinking paragraphs must be submitted. So again, you get 3 drops, and these need to be 100 to 200 words a total. It doesn't need to be an incredible book or anything like this. 100 words is a paragraph, a short paragraph. I would like you to comment on at least one of your peers' thought paragraphs within 3 days of submitting your own. If I notice that you are not doing this, I will go back and deduct points from your critical thinking paragraph. So in addition to the lecture and the critical thinking paragraphs, we are also going to have a media discussion group and a paper associated with it. So your critical thinking essay is going to be based off of this sort of media discussion group. So this is different than the critical thinking exercises that I give you, where I'm asking you to critically consider some emerging topics from leading experts in the field. Here, I would like you to self-select a group based on whether or not you want to think about drugs in the context of a book, movies, or different music mixtapes. So from that, you will view several movies, mixtapes, or the book that I've assigned. And then you will discuss this media with a group of peers that chose to join the same group as you. Over the course of the term, you will have to make at least 6 discussion posts to your media group to receive full discussion credit. You will also develop an outline based off of your discussions in this group, and then a critical thinking essay. Notably, this does not necessarily have to be a research essay at all. You can go that route if that's what you're comfortable with, but note that you're not constrained to a research essay at all. In fact, you don't need to include references at all for this essay. I will get into some examples of that here in a minute when I get down to the calendar of events. But right, do know that first I will go over how your grade is determined, and then I'll come back to this assignment when I get down to the schedule of events. So, about 1/3 of your grade will come from your quizzes. Another, about 1/4 of your grade will come from the thought paragraphs. And another about 1/3 of the grade will come from the paper and media discussion posts. Really, it's about equal thirds. So 1/3 from your quizzes, a little under 1/3 for the thought paragraphs, and then a little over 1/3 for the media discussion assignment, only because there is the essay involved in that. We are going to be discussing multiple sensitive topics in this class, that can involve, very, touchy subjects, including mental health, and how, for example, mental health could intersect with, things such as gender and race. So do note that, avoiding discrimination is very important to me. So if you feel that you or anybody else in the class is being discriminated against by anybody in the class or me, you should report us to the Title IX office or the CU Denver Office of Equity. That information can be found right here. However, I do want to point out that it's very important to me that we are comfortable discussing these sensitive subjects in a matter of through liberal discourse. I mean, liberal discourse is sort of the foundation or the bedrock of a university campus. It's very important that we be able to bring different perspectives to some of these topics. Drug dependence, I think, is a great example. how we view drug dependence is certainly going to vary a lot depending on one's background. Some are going as far to say that we shouldn't even use the term addiction anymore, and would I guess almost you would probably find people that would want to report you for even saying the term drug addict. So uh, right. I would say that there are probably more appropriate words that could be used than a drug addict, which does convey some sense of judgment. But do know that I think depending on one's background, they might not necessarily mean it as a huge slight to call somebody a drug addict versus a drug dependent individual or a substance dependent person seeking treatment. These sorts of things could be another way to go. But regardless, my point is that we have these I've designed these community discussion norms to help sort of guide our discussions. And the idea is generally that I would like you to feel comfortable to challenge ideas that you disagree with. I don't think it's very helpful at all to avoid or suppress your own ideas if they go against the group. Let's hear yours, and then but while doing that, acknowledge that people come from different backgrounds and bring unique perspectives. It's really, I think, one of the greatest things about CU Denver is that the courses can involve people from lots of different walks of life and backgrounds and ages. So, topics like drug addiction, can be seen very differently depending on where you are at a certain point in time. I can tell you how I look at drug addiction is very different after 40 than it was after 20. And then it was, again, very different than after 10. Yeah, you know that we come from different places, and that is okay. And then please try not to go after people and attack people outside of class, especially. It has happened. Not. Uh, it has happened too much recently, where people might make assumptions about people's identities based off of something that they said, and then go off and try to smear them here, say this or that there. I would like to avoid that completely. Please don't do that. And finally, we could have people in here that want to run for Congress one day and just don't even notice it yet. So I would like to have some amount of confidentiality here with our discussions related to drugs of abuse. One exception here would be, of course, if anybody violates anything that makes you feel discriminated against, you should definitely call them out. You should hold me to a higher standard. So especially be very critical of me and be willing to report me. But in general, I would like you to not post or take pictures of other people's comments and put them on social media. There's just, why would we do that? And it would also help in here to limit personal drug stories. But to be clear, personal drug stories are allowed. I'm just saying this as a point of caution in that I've heard many wild and crazy drug stories in this class over the years. And, it is, I think, a reasonable thing to bring in at times, but, note that people do document things and take pictures. And, if you give a wild drug story, even though I'm trying to tell people to be confidential, I cannot guarantee you that they will respect that confidentiality as much as they should. Again, know that in general, sensitive topics do come up in this class, things that do affect people. Drugs have been used for many different things. I think one of the, one example is date rape. Date rape is a horrible, horrible thing that is frankly not talked about very much. We talk about ketamine. We can talk about ketamine, in terms of its benefits, potential benefits in treating depression. But I mean, ketamine has some downsides too. In addition to what happened to Elijah McClain, which is a huge tragedy, obviously. Ketamine is also often used for date rape. It affects the memory. It produces short-term amnesia in addition to sedation. So, it is really an ideal drug for abuse. And to not mention that, I think, is to be irresponsible. Similarly, I find it difficult to talk about addiction without considering things like race and the prison system. These things are highly relevant. There is great intersection in terms of race and socioeconomic status and drug addiction outcomes. The prison system, a lot of people are in prison because of drugs. These things are probably going to come up in the class. Suicide also tends to be very associated with drugs, as does war. I would argue that we wouldn't even have a syringe to put opioids into somebody's arm. We wouldn't have opioids or the syringe if it weren't for war. A lot of these things were brought about or invented because of war. It is, but yet something that almost has certainly impacted people in this classroom. And that's the point I want you to keep in mind when we're talking about these sensitive topics. You know, uh, you don't know if the person across you is necessarily a combat veteran or has come from an intersectional background involving a very impoverished background. They could be from a racial or gender background that you might not be aware of. So, I think it's very important to keep in mind that, we should approach these subjects with a certain amount of tact. And knowing that also help you build long-term competencies or skills in your life. For example, many of your future colleagues will have also experienced these things, like been a combat veteran, for example. And, you should probably keep that in mind when you are discussing these topics. If you do encounter a discussion or a lecture of mine, even that is too uncomfortable for you, you can excuse yourself from that situation and let me know. I will find some solution that allows you to avoid this trauma. I don't want to force anybody to sit through a discussion or a lecture that they find uh, uh, to bring emotional distress. So I do want to avoid that, and it's something I'll help you find a workaround for if you need it. All right, now we're finally to the calendar of events. So here you can see every week you will have a new topic and you have to complete a quiz and post your thought paragraph. You also need to post your community discussion thread approximately every other week. There are not really hard deadlines for posting to the media discussion club. You just need 6 posts by the end of the term. Your critical thinking paragraphs, however, are due weekly, and there you could see the deadline for that in addition to the deadline for the quiz. So where is this material coming from? You can find that after the schedule of events right here. Most of my recordings are posted in the format of YouTube videos that you can find links to through Canvas. Here would be an example of the critical thinking material that would be you're responsible for creating that 100 to 200 word thought paragraph on, in addition to reviewing my lecture material and taking the quiz. And then here would be a prompt that you would be responding to when creating that thought paragraph. When there are multiple questions in the prompt, know that you don't have to respond to every one. These are just sort of common jumping off points. So, everybody in the class will have at least started with some common theme or thread of thought. Here's just an example of the next one. I would want you to listen to my lecture, read the readings that I assigned, which you can find here through a clickable link. And then read the critical thinking material. And again, all throughout this section, all of the content is freely available through these clickable links. Let me know if there's any link that's broken. I replaced one that was broken from last semester. As far as I know, all the others are functional, but these things change very rapidly. So that you follow that format for all of the lectures and critical thinking essays or critical thinking paragraphs. In addition, we will have this media club thing. This is that additional assignment that you have to make 6 discussion posts on over the course of the term. Again, there aren't fixed deadlines here. This is very flexible, and you need to comment on at least uh, a subset of the material here. So the first thing you need to do is decide if you want to join a movie club, a book club, or a music club. So here, do you want to learn about and consider drugs by listening to music, reading a book, or watching movies? For the book is How to Change Your Mind by Bill Pollan. This is a book that has also been adapted into a Netflix series that explores the use of psilocybin and psychedelics for mental uh, health and general well-being. If that sounds interesting to you, there is a book club here for you. You simply have to read the book and make 6 total comments in here and then write a paper on it. Because reading the book will take longer than listening to music or watching movies, you only have to prepare a 2-page paper following after reading the book. In addition to your 6 total responses, which again can really happen at any point over the course of the term. For the music, I'll go over the movie club next. For the movie club, I created 7 movies here for you. Birds of Passage, Flight, a Denzel film, uh, uh, Krisha, which is sort of I think portrayal of what drug addiction might how it might intersect with family interactions. Pain and Glory or Dolor y Gloria. That and Birds of Paradise are both in Spanish, but I've created English subtitles that are built in the recordings. The House I Live In is a good one. Drugstore Cowboy and Requiem for a Dream are 2 classics. There is some, graphic content in some of these, particularly Requiem for a Dream. There's one scene in particular there that I think can be I find a little uncomfortable. It involves, I would argue, sort of forced prostitution to receive drugs of abuse. Uh, but I do think that is also an important point to consider because that unfortunately does seem to happen too frequently in you know real life cases. So if you want to join the movie club, you can do so. You need to comment on at least 6. You need to make at least 6 posts. This includes one introduction post where you just say who you are. You do not need to comment on every movie. Ideally, I think you should watch at least 4 of these movies. Your essay can be on as little as 1 movie. The music mixtapes I consider as being very similar. I've created these around different things, like drugs that can self-medicate or expand the mind. Another on just people abusing drugs, almost glorifying it. Another on really analyzing the drug deal or drug exchanges in society. We've done this, in a variety of formats. So that might be interesting to some. I think this drugs in society mixtape is very has a lot of potential content for a critical thinking essay. There are huge issues that you could talk about here that are referenced, including the drug war. There's a lot of material in there that I think is really rich for theme ideas. There have been many pro-cannabis anthems. We tend to think about cannabis as a little different from other drugs of abuse. I mean, that in and of itself, I think, is worthy of an essay. or a critical thinking essay. But here are some of the pro cannabis anthems that I selected. The last two mixtapes focus on sobriety. The more really, I think, trying to emphasize sort of the hardness or the pain associated with uh, getting sober, which is not very easy to do once you've gone down this path. And then another that is a little more on staying sober uh, here at the very end. Again, you do not need to comment on every one of these mixtapes. Ideally, you would listen to at least four of the mixtapes. I really have no way of knowing how many mixtapes or movies you read. I also don't know if you read every book of the chapter of every chapter of the book. I will know if you post 6 times to this running discussion thread. You may make more than one post on one mixtape or one chapter or one movie. If there's one that really stuck out to you, 3 of your posts could be devoted to that one mixtape or movie, for example. And then again, at the end of this, you will write a final essay. If you choose the movie club, your essay must be 3 pages, book club 2 pages, music club 4 pages. I did this to account for the time it would take to consume the media. Before you submit your essay, you must first submit an outline. I have, emphasized where that is here in the schedule of events here. It is due in module 7. That's when your critical thinking paper outline would be due. Here, really, I'm looking for you to fill out this template at the very end. I would like you to come up with a hook sentence and a thesis statement of what your critical thinking paper might involve. I know that your outline is due before later movies come out, for example, or different mixtapes. You might not even consume the media that you really want to focus on in your essay yet, and that's okay. You can certainly see what the movie or mixtape further along in the semester would be like, from just looking up the trailer or uh, uh, noticing that the theme is on sobriety versus using drugs to expand the mind, two very different concepts, clearly. Um, then, simply list some bullet points of what you consumed so far and what you need to do to finish uh, preparing for the essay. Finally, conclude with a final take-home message. So that's the class that I have set up for you. Please let me know if you have any questions. I will respond as quickly as possible through either the virtual office or email. I'm also happy to set up Zoom meetings. Have a great semester. I look forward to chatting drugs with you at various levels.